Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for Titane. Now, I gotta be really careful when it comes to the plot of this movie, because truly I do think this is a film that's best to go in knowing nothing, but essentially what this movie is about is we center on the character of Alexia. She is this woman who, at a very young age, she's in this very severe car accident, and after being injured in this, instead of just, having surgery or something like that, she has a titanium plate that is fit inside her head, and after that, nothing really is the same. She really is changed forever in a pretty big way. And yeah, we follow her journey throughout her life, and that's really all I can say. Look, I was very excited for this movie. Going into it, I really didn't know what it was really going to be, because the trailer did a really good job, I think, of really hiding what this movie even really was, to the point where I didn't even really know what it was about going into it, but it looked very creative, it looked very different, it looked really weird, and, any sort of film like that, that's a film that is immediately going to be on my radar. You guys know I like really weird shit, and this definitely seemed like the kind of weird shit that I would really eat up overall, and I will say, it absolutely lived up to the hype. This is without a doubt one of the strangest films I have ever seen, but it also is one of the most ambitious I've ever seen as well, and one of those films that impressed me more and more the way it went on, and really took me on a journey that I was not at all expecting in the way that it did, but we are just getting into it right now. So I have to say, when it comes to this movie, and I think with just the nature of its premise and things like that, you really need a strong cast to make this work. Because if you have the wrong cast, this entire thing could flatline. This entire thing would just be too weird. It would be way too over the top. And thankfully, the cast really does rise to the occasion. But especially when it comes to Agathe Rousselle, who absolutely blew me away in this film. The character of Alexia, like I said, I can't really say too much about, but she's gone through quite a bit of trauma in her life, and she's not really in the best place. She feels a lot of loneliness because of how she acts, and Rousselle just does such an amazing job of portraying this character. There are certain things this character does early on in the movie, and you're not really sure if you're going to be able to buy into it, but because of Rousselle and the way she really gets you inside this character's head and gets you to understand her actions, I mean, she really grounds it in, she really finds a way to ground the character, and a lot of it is done without any dialogue whatsoever, and that's a really hard task with especially where they take this character, but she absolutely killed it and gave, I think, one of the most impressive and overall best performances I've seen all year. I haven't really seen much from her, but after this, I want to see her in more things immediately. I think she is just such an amazing screen presence. She's someone you really can't take your eyes off of no matter what she's doing, even if she's doing something really mundane. Even if she's committing like the most mundane of acts, you are so drawn to her as a character, and that really is due to, yes, the writing, which we'll get into, but it really is Roselle's acting that makes this character, I think, so memorable, and I really love what she ended up doing here. But what also makes her performance so impressive is that there is so much that she has to do in this movie. This is a very challenging performance. This character goes through quite a bit of a shift within her life, and there's so many different emotions that she needs to process and things like that, and the way that she's able to process all of these different emotions and convey them in a way to the audience that makes sense without basically any dialogue is so impressive to me. And like I said, I really do want to see her in another movie ASAP. I don't know what we got to do to get her into another film, but I generally think she gives an Oscar-worthy performance here, and I know it's not going to happen, but I very much would love to see her get some awards love, because I think she very much does deserve it. It is such a powerhouse performance overall, but again, in a much subtler way than you really are expecting, and I think that's what makes it just such a memorable performance. She definitely was one of the best things about this movie through and through. But the other big performance in here that I think everyone's going to be talking about is Vincent London, who's another character I can't really say all that much about, but he has a strong connection to our main lead, and he gives a really sort of emotional performance, and it works really well. I really enjoyed what he ended up doing here. He poured so much heart into this role, and you really do find this character to be someone that I think you're really going to latch onto when you realize the dilemma that he is going through as well, and what really brings these two together. I think he does a really strong job. He has one scene especially, it's just in a bathroom mirror, and he absolutely crushed it. I loved what he ended up doing in this film. Really fantastic performance. And all the performances here are really great. I think all of the acting all around is just fantastic throughout this film. But let's get more into the directing and the writing, because that is the thing that I think really makes this film truly unlike anything I've ever seen. Julia Ducournau's directing is indescribable. Honestly, it is indescribable how she's able to pull off what she does in this movie, because without getting into too much, the way this movie starts off, you think you know where it's going to go. It's really insane. It's loud. It's absolutely bonkers what she ends up doing. And I was fully down for the ride. I thought I knew where the film was going to go. I thought it was going to go in this very predictable direction. But about halfway through the film, it doesn't just change in terms of like predictability, it changes tones entirely. It becomes almost a different movie, and a lot of the time that would be an issue for me because the film would feel too tonally inconsistent. It wouldn't really feel like it works, but I think because of Ducournau's directing, the film earns the switch in tone, and it actually made the film that much better as a result. And the way that she was able to take what was such a bizarre, this really weird, sort of body horror of sorts, and turned it into generally a very like emotional movie, I think is just such an achievement. I don't know how she was able to really pull it off, because like I said, you are so off-put by what's going on, but once you get to a certain point, it's actually very endearing, and I really love the way that she ended up directing this film. She has such a specific style that, again, I can't even really put into words, but it all just works so well for me. I haven't seen her other film, Raw, but after this film, I really do want to. There are very few directors like her out there, I feel like. She just has such a specific style, and she really leans into it, and I think she absolutely delivered with this film. I think this is a director that people don't know a lot about, but I think after this film, she's really gonna make a name for herself, and I really do hope to see her acquire more projects like this in the future, because I really do love the way she directed this film overall. But let's get more into the screenplay in this film, which again, I can't really say all that much about without getting into spoilers. This is such a difficult movie to really talk about. But what I think is so great about this screenplay is that, on paper, you read what this movie's about, and you're like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, there's no way that's gonna work. That sounds so dumb. But then you watch it play out, and it actually feels very natural. And I think the reason it works so well is because they don't try to make this weird. They just present it in a natural way. And I think while at first, again, you're gonna be pretty puzzled and just kind of weirded out by like why they decided to go in this direction, I think as the film goes on, you really start to understand more of what it's going for. And I think what it does so well is Alexia as a character is really someone I think a lot of people are going to feel drawn to. There's a lot of themes that this character goes through, a lot of which I can't really get into that much, but really, this is a character that is searching for love. She wants genuine love in her life. She has not really been able to obtain that, and we sort of see her struggle with that throughout the movie. She's not a character that a lot of people can relate to. She's not someone that has similar interests. She's not someone that has similar hobbies, and so she feels very disconnected from pretty much everyone. And I think that's what makes her character so relatable in that way, despite the things that she's doing, despite what she, partakes in, what she frequents herself with, the activities she frequents with. I think what really made me latch onto her character is that loneliness, is that feeling of like, I'm different from everyone else. I don't fit in with anyone. I don't connect with anyone. You really want her character to find that, genuine love. You want her character to find someone that generally cares about her, and I think they do a really great job with that throughout this entire movie. This really is a character study at the end of the day, and it's a really strong one at that, because, again, it takes what seems weird and turns it into something normal, and I think that's something that this film just does such an excellent job with, is that what at first, again, is just really weird and out there, eventually turns a lot more normal in that way, and I really did appreciate that. But also when it came to the character of Vincent, you know, this is sort of this kindred spirit for Alexia, and the bond that these two end up forming, it's very sweet, and I was honestly surprised by just how wrapped up in my emotions I was getting with this film. There's one moment especially that honestly had me on the verge of tears, but they did such a great job with really getting us to understand these two characters, you know, why they really are the way they are, and I think that's something that they did a really great job with. And there's a lot of other themes here about gender, about humanity in general, but again, I think that all those themes are touched upon very well. There's a lot this film wants to do. There's a lot that it wants to accomplish, and again, reading it on paper, it does seem like it's a lot. This is just, it's such a overwhelming film in terms of the different emotions you're going to feel, in terms of the different, you know, the different things that this film depicts, the tone switches and things like that. It just doesn't seem like something that could work, but yet it does. It hits every single beat, and I think that's something that works so well with this film. I really do love how much this film does go for it. Yes, it's bizarre, but again, I think that what makes it so effective is that it takes it pretty seriously. It goes in a much different direction than you're expecting, and it actually does end up working. And the characters, like I said, are really well developed. You know, you really are latched onto what's happening, and you're very early on, I think you're going to be very riveted into the story. So, well, I think at first it's going to be weird for some. I think you're going to get so invested in the story that you're honestly going to just forget about how weird it was. At least that's what happened to me. Like, at first when I was watching this, I was like, whoa, this is really out there. Like, I knew it was going to be something different, but it's so fucking bizarre. But once they started to peel back the layers of some of these characters, you know, I really found myself more just kind of wrapped up in what was going on with them rather than some of the subject matter in this movie. And I think that's something they did a really strong job with. But you also find yourself so drawn to the relationship that Alexia and Vincent eventually do form. I can't get into it too much, but I was honestly surprised by how invested I was in these two characters, not just in how weird things were, because, yeah, the film is very audacious. Yes, the film is not normal in terms of some of its content, but again, I really wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking more about just how much I cared about these two characters, how much I wanted them to get out of this predicament, how much I was enjoying the bond that these two were forming. It's honestly really sweet, and it feels very genuine, and I can't believe that a film like this that starts off the way it does went in these directions, and even more or less that it actually worked. It honestly cannot be iterated enough just how different this movie is, but also just how impressive it is. I was so blown away by this screenplay. It's truly one of the best I've seen, and I left the film so speechless by what went on, but not in the way that you would have expected. Not speechless like, oh, that was so weird. Speechless that it works. Speechless that it went to the places that it did, especially with the way the film started off. I was just so thoroughly impressed by what they were able to accomplish here, by the type of story they were able to tell, because it doesn't seem like something that's going to work on paper, but when you see what Ducournau is really trying to do, it really does become one of the most beautiful films of the entire year, and it's truly something I'm never going to forget. So just all around, just such an amazing screenplay here. And look, are there similar things that you've seen in other movies? Yes, but you haven't seen them tackled in the way it's done here. You haven't seen these ideas presented in quite the way it's done here, and that's what was so impressive to me, is that they find ways to tell a story that we have seen before, but they don't do it in the way that you're expecting. This is a very subtle, this is a very audacious movie, and it really does go for it in that department. There's moments where it's very over the top, but then there are a lot more quieter moments, and I really did appreciate that about this movie. Every time I thought I knew what it was going to do, it found a way to surprise me, and I thought the film was so much better as a result of that. But oh my god, the cinematography in this movie is otherworldly. It is just some of the most striking imagery that I have seen all year. Again, this film is, I gotta reiterate, really fucking graphic. Not only is it weird and bizarre, it is really graphic. There are places this film goes that other films wouldn't dare to, and it does, and it all looks beautiful. It all looks so it all looks amazing in that way, and I think they did a great job with that. You know, it's a very vibrant cinematography. It really catches your eye. There's a lot of scenes in here that I'm truly never going to forget, and it's the way that they are composed. And again, when that switch does happen, the cinematography also looks a little different. You know, the cinematography didn't change all that much, but it started to focus on other things, and I thought that overall the film was very well shot in that way. There's a lot of moments here that work very well for me. There's one thing that they keep cutting back to, and I didn't think I was gonna like it, but it's a really good visual motif, and it foreshadows a lot of what's the main conflict this character is dealing with overall. Again, I really would love to talk more about it. I'd love to get more in depth with what's going on in this movie, but trust me when I say it is much better knowing very little about this going in. I think the film is so much more effective if you know absolutely nothing really going into this film. And once that shift happened, like I said, I still felt that unpredictability. I didn't know what was going to happen. And you still aren't fully convinced when the film is going in this direction. You think maybe it's going to go back to the way that it was, but no, it stays in this direction, and it works so well. It's so effective. It makes so much sense for these characters because, again, you don't really understand the deeper meaning until the film leans heavier into it. You don't really understand what this film is really trying to say until it gets further into it, and I think once it does, it just makes for such a memorable and truly impactful film overall that I think you're truly never going to forget. The score by Jim Williams is also amazing here. It's this great, like, electronic score that really never stops delivering. It was definitely a huge highlight for me throughout the entire movie. It was very tense and, like, aggressive at points, but I really loved his score overall. It's probably one of my favorite scores of the entire year. Really is nothing like, there's truly nothing like it, and I really liked what he ended up doing here, and the editing for this movie I think was legitimately perfect. I think this film was very well paced. I was into it pretty much the entire time. There's a lot of sequences that do go on for a while, but I think they're that much better that they go on for a while. There's even some scenes that I don't think you're going to understand the point of, but as the movie goes on, you will understand more of what they're trying to do, and I think they overall did a really strong job with that. Without getting into too much, the way this movie ended is one of the most, I think, heartfelt endings really of the entire year. There was something that they did at the end of this movie, and I generally didn't realize what they were trying to do, the story that they were trying to tell, until we got to the very end, and I was like, oh, and it changed, like, the whole fucking movie for me, and I think it made it so much better as a result. There's so many, like, nuances and details that I think on a rewatch, it's gonna play even better for me. Like I said, I really do love this movie a lot, but I think on a rewatch, I'll appreciate even more because I'll know more of what they're trying to set up, more of what they're trying to do. I think they did such a great job with that. I mean, there aren't many films that I watch that has me laughing in some instances, that has me cringing and wincing at some of the things they're presenting. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? But it's like a good cringe. It's like, oh my God, you're showing this to me, but like I also can't look away. You know, it's like one of those things. But then you also have emotions of me, you know, really getting invested in the characters to the point where I'm on the verge of tears. It's like there's not many movies that can do that to you. And this film is able to do that, I think. I think no matter what happens, you're going to have some kind of a reaction to this movie, whether it be positive or negative. And I think that's really great. I think it's great that this film is able to get some sort of reaction out of you because I think that, you know, it's hard to do that. At least for me, like, it's hard to get certain emotions out of me. But this film very much did do that, and that's something that I definitely am very happy about. So again, I really do love so much about this movie. It's so weird, it's so audacious, but it also left a much bigger impact on me emotionally than I really was expecting. In terms of flaws, I mean, there's very little that I can complain about here. I think my only real issue with the movie, and it's honestly something that I could see myself just watching back and be like, no, that's stupid. Why do you think this way? There's a lot of context we get with this character. We do understand what she's going through. We understand why she feels this way. But I did feel that I wanted to see a little bit more of her past. I wanted to see more of what this character has really gone through, because there's some things that are a bit vague to us, and I would have liked to I would have liked to have gotten a bit more clarity with some of the things that are going on within her life, and I don't think they do that quite as well as they could have. But honestly, there's so much that I can praise this movie for, whether it's the amazing performances from Agathe, Rousselle, and Vincent London, both of which are Oscar-worthy in my opinion. Such amazing and different directing from Julia Ducournau, which is just such a daring talent that I really hope gets to do more work within the future. Amazing and striking cinematography here. It's an electric score. It is just truly one of the best things I have seen all year. It's a film that is so hard to talk about without spoilers, and I truly do challenge anyone to do so, but it is so much better because of the risks that it takes. And I promise you when I say, even if you aren't into this movie, I would at least recommend giving it a chance. I know there are going to be some people that are probably extremely turned off by this movie just from a few of the opening scenes. But I think if you do stick with it, I really do think this becomes one of the most effective and generally emotional films of the entire year. It is by far one of the best films I have seen all year, and I'm absolutely going to give Titane overall an A. Definitely recommend you guys checking this one out. It is on VOD now, and I'm very happy that it has a life on there. I really hope it's able to gain a big audience. For me, in terms of like foreign films, I don't really see there being one that tops this. I know people are saying Worst Person in the World's like really fucking great, and I'm excited to see that one, but I don't think that film is going to have the impact that this one did on me. I could definitely see myself changing this to an A+ in the future, but like I said, it's just that one little thing, it's just bothering me a bit. But again, maybe when I rewatch it, that'll just go away. But really, other than that, guys, that's it for this video. Please check out this movie. If you have seen it, please let me know what you thought of it. Would love to hear your thoughts in it. I can get a little bit more in depth with what I thought about certain character decisions and what the movie is actually about, you know, if you have seen it, because I really do want to talk about that, but I just wanted to be as vague as possible when it came to the details of this movie, because I think it's so much better without knowing. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.